Hey, I'm Brad, and welcome back to Overkill Reviews. It was just Canadian Thanksgiving, and quite frankly, I'm just thankful that the past few albums that I've reviewed here have all been good. But before you get to find out what I think of this week's album, I want to remind you to please hit the subscribe button down below. Why? Well, I'm thankful for 95,000 subscriptions, thank you very much, but I still want 100,000 because I'm greedy and selfish and want all the turkey and stuffing to myself. I'm vegan, that doesn't make any sense anymore. Once upon a time, I included lyrics and a song clip from this band in a school presentation, and somehow didn't even get detention. Yeah, I literally read the line, "Hacked to pieces they found her," or rather they scraped her off the floor, to my high school writer's craft class. Thanks, Miss Moser, for not sending me to the counselor's office or getting me expelled or whatever. That was on this album, but this week I'm reviewing the new one from Exhumed, Death Revenge, out today on Relapse Records. Exhumed are a death metal band from San Jose, California, which coincidentally is where the greatest hockey team of all time comes from. Death Revenge is their 8th studio album. Whether or not you include the covers album and a re-recording of gore metal they did a couple years ago, that's up to you. But what's really important about the album is it marks the return of Ross Sewage, who hasn't played on an album since the original gore metal came out in 1998. Oh, and it's a concept album about the murders of Burke and Hare in 1820s Scotland. History lesson time. Back in 1823, an act was passed that made it so there were less crimes that were punishable by death. But unfortunately, that left it so there were a lot less bodies for medical and anatomical schools to dissect and research. It started innocently enough for these two dudes who, one of them owned like a boarding house. And this guy died when he still owed them some rent money. So the guys were like, hey, let's take his body to this school and sell it to them to make up for the money he owes me. So they did, and they were like, shit, we can kind of get rich off this shit. So killing for profit was kind of the next logical step, which kind of fucked up. Sounds like excellent fodder for a good death metal album. But is it a good death metal album? Well, let's find out. The album starts out with like a horror score-esque overture, but then we get into the first proper song on the album, Defenders of the Grave. I find this intro really effective because it kind of builds on itself. Every time the register gets a little bit higher, it increases the anticipation. And then you get into that halftime death metal groove. And the opposite of a groove is a blast beat. So cue the blast beat. I really appreciate the use of a blast beat as a transition because it just kind of completely flips the mood of the song from that anticipation building intro into just a chaotic, grindy part. I'm not going to play it for you, but I find the songwriting on this track just awesome because they actually circle back to that intro riff and it kind of builds and builds and builds right until the end. It kind of keeps you invested for the entire song. The next track I want to talk about is one that will definitely get your attention. Pretty sure when I was a kid, I used to make those gurgling noises with my drinks, and my mom would just get pissed off at me for being annoying. I can't believe someone actually found a practical application for it. Okay, seriously. At first I thought that that was maybe the sound of somebody getting their throat slit and it was the band illustrating the way that these guys killed their victims. But they never slit anybody's throat. They actually suffocated them. So yeah, short answer, I don't know why they put that noise there, but it sounds fucking cool, so I wanted to include it in my review. So this next song I want to talk about, unfortunately, doesn't have a concentrated blast of gurgling, but it's called A Funeral Party. So these gurgling vocals, which are gurgled vocals instead of gurgling monster all over yourself, are actually one of the main reasons that I'm stoked that Ross is back in the band. And actually, quite frankly, I was really hoping that they would use them more. The contrast between those gurgles and the high-pitched screams, it's awesome. Anyway, I want to talk about one more song before we're done here. It's called Incarnate Hands, and I don't know what that word means. What is humanity? The sum of his feeling, warranting, measuring by the depth of his misdeeds. Is he but flesh and bone, the sum of the known in mind? Is he what he has brought, or what he has torn apart? So this next criticism might be a little bit weird if you've been paying attention to all my reviews. Last week I reviewed the Black Dahlia Murder and praised them for their melodic death metal sound. But I'm not as excited about the mellow death here. You know, it's like the people who like chocolate and mint, but they don't like mint chocolate. What's wrong with you people? I think the real problem is people who like chocolate orange. Fuck that. So yeah, what I'm saying is I like a lot of melodic death metal, and I like Exhumed, but when they come together, it's not always my favorite thing. And they kind of do that a lot on this album. The contrast between the grindy, gurgly part there and the melodic death metal just kind of accentuates the corniness of it. Sorry guys, I don't love it. Overall, a little bit more melody than I would have preferred is a small gripe that I have with this album. So I'm kind of giving them a hard time. The mellow death thing doesn't completely wreck the album. In fact, the mellow death elements are well written. And if they hadn't gotten Ross back in the band, was probably what I would have expected. But since they did, I was expecting more of the gurgly, guttural, more grindy elements that were present on the last album he recorded with them. What really grinds my gears, though, is the 7-minute instrumental. I understand the purpose of instrumentals or interludes in concept albums. You know, you're trying to sell a story, you want to set the tone. While this instrumental starts out with the horror score kind of elements, it kind of just devolves into a noodle fest. You know, it's just instrumental metal. And I think it would be better, quite frankly, with vocals on top of it. And it just kind of, you know, takes the wind out of the sails. Sure, I could just delete that track from my iTunes and listen to an 11-song album instead. But unfortunately, this is an album review, and I have to review the album as it's presented. So here we are. In the end, it's a solid album. It doesn't have exactly the balance that I was hoping for, but, you know, it's what you'd expect from Exhumed in 2017. There's a lot of death metal, a little bit of grind, and some more melodic parts. I've learned a lot about robbing graves. See, metal does make you smart. And I took that knowledge and dug up 5 bodies. Of those, I like 3.5 of their skulls on Overkill Reviews. Thanks so much for watching. I honestly really do like talking to all you guys in the comments below about what you think of this album or whatever else is going on in metal, so please leave a comment down there. And also head over to BangerTV.com to leave your own skull rating. Oh yeah, and it would mean a lot if you could subscribe to us and to my other channel, Aggressive Tendencies. Thanks so much. See you next time.